Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Friday, June 13th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Coming up, this week marked a new turn in immigration enforcement efforts by the Trump administration.
I think every American should be deeply concerned by what they're seeing.
We speak with U.S. Senator Adam Schiff about the growing concerns he sees. But first, today's headlines. As protests against immigration sweeps in Los Angeles continues to dominate news coverage, a quieter operation appears to be taking hold in California's heartland. KVPR has not been able to independently verify their presence, but advocates say immigration authorities hit multiple farms this week. This has sparked concern among the state's large agricultural workforce. KVPR's Joshua Yeager reports.
Federal agents targeted at least 3 California farms. The United Farm Workers Union tells KVPR some of their members witnessed the raids. Videos posted on social media also shows ICE agents chasing workers down in a field. Teresa Romero leads the United Farm Workers. She says Trump is going after the wrong people with his current immigration policies.
It is just horrible what's happening to our people and in our communities, to people who have been working in agriculture for decades, putting food on our tables, families being separated, children living in fear. It's just heartbreaking.
ICE did not immediately return KVPR's comment request. For KVPR News, I'm Joshua Yeager in Bakersfield.
Protests against the Trump administration are planned in the Valley for this Saturday. The so-called No Kings demonstrations are coinciding with a military parade taking place in Washington, D.C. It's to celebrate the U.S. Army's 250th birthday. It will also coincide with President Trump's 79th birthday. Groups in Fresno, Merced, and Bakersfield are among those taking part in the protests. California Attorney General Rob Bonta is fighting back against the Trump administration's latest attempt to stop clean energy efforts. Bonta announced on Thursday that he's filing a lawsuit with 10 other states against Trump's resolution to stop the state's banning of new gas-powered cars by 2035. Bonta says Trump is illegally using what's known as the Congressional Review Act to stop the move. The Congressional Review Act gives Congress oversight on actions by federal agencies.
We refuse to let this unprecedented and illegal use of the CRA undermine the Clean Air Act waivers that give California the authority to enforce our own emission standards.
Governor Gavin Newsom and the California Air Resources Board are participating in the lawsuit. Yosemite National Park is opening all of its campgrounds for the first time in 5 years. Officials say this means an additional 500 campsites will be open to the public as the summer season approaches. Reservations will be required for all campgrounds, with reservation slots opening up this weekend. Most campgrounds will open later this month and in early July.
Support for Central Valley Daily comes from Body 20 in Fresno's Fig Garden Village, offering full-body electromuscle stimulation training sessions. It's a high-tech, time-efficient way to help preserve and rebuild lean muscle. Each 20-minute one-on-one session is guided by a certified coach using FDA-cleared technology. Body 20 accepts health savings account cards. More information available by searching the Fig Garden location at body20.com.
And now to our main story. This week marked a turn in relations between Democratic lawmakers and the Trump administration, and also a turn in the president's campaign promise to conduct mass deportations. Much of the latest tension is centered on protests that erupted in Los Angeles 1 week ago. People have taken to the streets to protest raids by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. Last weekend, President Trump federalized the National Guard and ordered troops to move into Los Angeles to quell the protests. Now, that was against the will of Mayor Karen Bass and Governor Gavin Newsom, both Democrats. State lawmakers have noted that the National Guard troops are only protecting federal property and not actually assisting local law enforcement with the protests. State officials asked a court to rescind that order by the president. Tensions flared again on Thursday.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary.
When Democratic California Senator Alex Padilla interrupted a press conference by Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in Los Angeles.
Hands off!
Dramatic video online shows Padilla trying to ask a question during Noem's remarks. He's then forcibly removed from the room, placed on the ground, and handcuffed. Padilla gave a statement to the press a short time later. The escalating conflicts have gone from the streets of Los Angeles to hallways involving lawmakers. All of it's calling into question the future of bipartisan relations as the Trump administration doubles down on claims of an invasion by immigrants and proceeds with arrests and detainments across the country. Moments after the incident with Senator Padilla, KVPR was able to speak with his colleague, Senator Adam Schiff. This was a pre-scheduled interview about ongoing immigration enforcement and other matters pertaining to the state. Schiff had just finished making remarks on the Senate floor. We're bringing you that conversation now, conducted by KVPR reporter Joshua Yeager. Schiff starts the conversation with his response to the federalization of the National Guard in Los Angeles.
It is deeply concerning to me because I think this was done not to try to de-escalate, but to try to escalate the situation. LA has more than enough capacity with its police department and sheriff's department, with the CHP, to handle large demonstrations and to handle the small number of people who are there to do mischief and to vandalize or try to assault law enforcement. So that was something that California is more than capable of dealing with. And this action by the president over the governor's objection to federalizing the National Guard, to sending in Marines, was totally unnecessary, escalatory, and more likely to have an adverse impact than a helpful one. So deep concern about that. And of course, my concerns only grew exponentially today after seeing what happened to my friend and colleague Alex Padilla, Senator Padilla, when he was forcefully removed from a briefing, thrown to the ground, his arms pinned behind his back, after identifying himself as a U.S. Senator, attending a press briefing by the Secretary of Homeland Security. That kind of terrible mistreatment of a U.S. Senator, or frankly anyone else, is deeply alarming to me.
Right. And that incident with Senator Padilla seems to be an example of rising tensions between public officials and the Trump administration more generally. As an elected official, what do you make of that?
Well, what I make of it is, and I think you're right, this is a time of escalating tension, but he's there to do his job, which is to ask difficult questions of our cabinet members, like Kristi Noem, who was giving the briefing. He identified himself. And I understand the secretary doesn't want to answer questions because, frankly, the actions in calling in the Guard and the Marines are unjustifiable. But that is no excuse, reason, justification, rationale for mistreating, manhandling Alex Padilla that way. And if they'll do that to Alex Padilla, then what will they do to a farm worker in the field or someone else in a garment factory or elsewhere who is trying to assert their rights or express themselves? I think every American should be deeply concerned by what they're seeing.
The situation in LA right now is centered around immigration sweeps. Is there concern that immigration enforcement could move north? Earlier this week, just recently, we've seen examples of raids in farms, of sweeps in farms.
There's deep concern about this. We saw actually one of the first immigration actions was in the Central Valley. And I met with some of the children of farm workers who were affected by that, who'd been separated from their parents. Both of the young people I spoke with had their fathers deported away from them. I spoke to wives who had their husbands taken away and brothers and sisters separated. It was just painful. And now we're seeing that repeated with these attempts to make arrests and station themselves outside of fields or even pursue people in the middle of a field. So this is already happening. I think the administration, which promised that it was going to focus on violent offenders, quickly realized that that was not going to produce the kind of numbers that they wanted to see and to deport. So almost from the beginning, their raids have been completely random, picking up people with no criminal records, people, in fact, who have been out there in the fields night and day, through heat and cold, through pandemics, to put food on our table, and to treat people that way, I think is just heartless. And so, given the escalation of this, sadly, I think we can expect to see a lot more of it throughout the state of California and throughout the country.
Now, a court order recently prohibited random stops and detainments by Border Patrol. Are you concerned the court order may not be followed in these actions that the president is pushing?
I think there's every indication that this court order, like others, is not being followed, is not being adhered to, because they're arresting not only immigrants and migrants, they're arresting U.S. citizens. They're just grabbing anyone that looks Latino and often arresting them. And it has taken, at times, days for U.S. citizens to be able to get out of ICE custody, even when they show identification. So it is creating this pervasive climate of fear. The fear is part of their goal. But yes, I have profound concern that courts which have looked at these practices of just grabbing people randomly based on their ethnic profile and arresting and detaining them, this is lawless action, and it seems to be repeated over and over again.
I want to talk briefly about another issue affecting agriculture. You recently worked with the Trump administration to keep USDA offices open in the Central Valley and beyond. Why was that an important action for you?
Well, these regional USDA offices are really important to the agriculture industry. They're important because if there's a disease or a pest affecting a field, it's important to get an analysis of just what that is so that it can be attacked and prevented and dealt with. Likewise, farmers trying to market their crops overseas, particularly at a time of tariffs and trade wars, need that expertise in marketing their crops and knowing how to navigate the system. And to have those offices shut down would be devastating. I was talking to a rancher recently, a California rancher, who was telling me how the personnel at these offices, the USDA offices, they know the farmers, they work with them, they're responsive, they're right there. So they were going to shut all these offices down. And I interceded with the Secretary of Agriculture, and I'm grateful that upon further consideration, she reversed the course, and the vast majority of those offices will now be kept open.
I think some would be surprised that a California Democrat would be the one to stand up for the ag industry.
I'm the first California senator on the Ag Committee in over 30 years. I requested that assignment. It is we're the number one agriculture producing state in the union. I'm really proud of the industry. I'm really grateful to meet so many incredible farmers and farm workers. And so I think it's important that California agriculture has a seat at the table when we're writing the Farm Bill. So I'm proud to be there. I am deeply concerned from the industry's point of view also that these deportations, these raids, this climate of fear is going to affect the ability to harvest produce from the fields if the people who do that hard work are not going to show up because they're worried they're going to be caught up in these raids. So farmers are already under enormous pressure. We don't need to add this to the mix.
These USDA office closures were a result of efforts by DOGE to cut federal spending. We understand Elon Musk is out, but DOGE efforts may continue. What will you be doing to ensure that the DOGE team does things properly?
I'll continue to do what I have been doing and did in the case of these USDA offices, and that is point out their importance. These offices, these field offices, they are hardly wasteful or an abuse, and the farmers would be the first to tell you that. Likewise, so many other aspects of the federal government and the federal workforce, really important, and to just send people blanket notices of layoffs, not mindful of the great harm that it will do not only to those employees, but to all the public that they serve. It's important to highlight these things. The closure of national parks could result if they lay off all the park rangers or a lot of them, or if not the closure of parks, the deterioration of our parks, efforts to undermine food security by going after SNAP, a program that not only feeds a lot of kids in America, but also allows farmers to sell produce to schools and food banks. I'm going to continue making the case why these are far from harmful or wasteful, but frankly, things that people really rely on.
That was KVPR's Joshua Yeager in a conversation with Adam Schiff. He's a U.S. Senator for California. And that is today's show. Keep up with all of the developments from Washington and around the world on newscasts from NPR. You can catch those on KVPR 89.3 in Fresno and 89.1 in Bakersfield, as well as on the KVPR website and app. Today's episode was produced by Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
Planet Money helps you understand the economy. We find the people at the center of the story.
Garbage in New York, that was like a controlled substance.
We show you how money influences everything.
Tell me what you like by telling me how you spend your money.
And we dig until we get answers.
I had a bad feeling you were going to bring that up.
Planet Money finds out. All you have to do is listen. The Planet Money Podcast from NPR.